In Ireland, we're blessed with many distilleries in Ireland, and all of the distilleries offer something a little bit different. We were looking for a distillery that matched our ambition in terms of being a small but beautiful producer, to be big enough to be able to cope with the demand that we would have, and being small enough to care, if you will, about the customer and the final product. And we were very lucky to work with Powerscourt Distillery in terms of their time and effort to get us the whiskey and the flavour compounds that we were looking for, that we could actually taste and that we could would actually work in the process, because some of the whiskies, albeit were from big distilleries, but the flavour profile we were getting through just wasn't going to do it for us at Johnstone.
Powerscourt is a premium producer of whiskey. Everything we do, from the ground up, from the quality of the local ingredients, the local barley that we use, some of it from grown here on the estate. That is right across the board. It's all premium. The equipment that we have, the systems we have in place. We were very fortunate in having investors in the board which supported the plan to put in the very highest quality equipment that we possibly could. All the engineering works and design works and production works was done by Forsyth in Scotland, who are the absolute Rolls Royce of engineering when it comes to distilling globally. And again, that's just small increments of higher quality than is absolutely necessary, accumulate in a difference at the end of the day when it comes to tasting the whiskey.
Hello, I'm Jerry Ginty, the COO of Powerscourt Distillery. I was responsible for the design team and the project management of the distillery here on the beautiful Powerscourt estate in Enniskerry, County Wicklow. The Powerscourt estate is known as the jewel in the crown of the Garden of Ireland in County Wicklow. It's one of the most beautiful estates in the world and can be traced back to the 9th century, to a territory that stretches across fertile plains and rugged mountainous lands. Here, the old mill house has been faithfully restored and extended to house Powerscourt Distillery, a 2,000 square foot state-of-the-art production facility and visitor centre. Steeped in history, built using local granite, the old bell that adorns the northern west wall was originally used to herald the daily lunch breaks for workers in distant fields. Being one of the oldest buildings on the estate, it boasts an ancient water mill deep in its foundations. It is this water and locally, sustainably farmed grain that creates the basis for Powerscourt whisky. In recent years, we've seen growing efforts among many distilleries in becoming increasingly energy efficient and indeed green by nature. Powerscourt Distillery is committed to sustainability, and in every aspect of the project, we've tried to use the latest technologies to future-proof the building. Here we have the cooling tower. Usually the liquid is heated to 60+ degrees, and waste hot water from the distillation process typically goes into the cooling tower to reduce the temperature to 20 degrees before releasing into the drain. The cooling tower consumes large amounts of heat to complete this process. Together with our design team, JB Tierney and Quinn Downs, we found a new purpose for the waste heat water produced in the distillation process. The distillation process produces significant amounts of hot water, which is usually sent to the cooling tower to reduce the temperature to 20 degrees. The team recognised that there was an opportunity to reduce the heating costs for the distillery and visitor centre. We looked at ways of harnessing and the redistribution of the waste heat. This sustainable energy source was perfect for heating the building. The use of the heat exchangers and the air heat pump is implemented on the production floor to reuse the heat from the production process and reduce our energy needs. To effectively manage our energy consumption, we have invested in a building management system which monitors and measures our energy consumption on a daily basis. This includes gas, electricity and water. We also future-proofed the distillery and visitor centre by installing a heatsink in the foundations of the building. The heatsink is an insulated concrete thermal energy reserve. which it can receive and store huge amounts of heat, thus creating a thermal mass for the building. The heat sink absorbs the heat from the underfloor heating during the day and releases this back into the building at night, thus reducing our gas and electricity consumption. We are also very proud to partner with Keller Gas, utilising their 100% renewable biogas to power our distillery and visitor centre. In line with our commitment, Powerscourt Distillery have signed up to the Origin Green Sustainability Charter. Origin Green is Ireland's pioneering food and drink sustainability programme. The programme is the world's only national food and drink sustainability programme and enables Powerscourt Distillery to set and achieve measurable, sustainable targets that respect the environment and serve local communities more effectively. Our two main byproducts, spent grain from mashing and pot ale from the first distillation, are collected by a local farmer and fed to the cattle. We try to limit the amount of liquid sent for land spreading, with future plans to anaerobically digest the non-edible wastewater to create a biogas. Regarding our raw material sourcing, all barley is grown on the east coast of Ireland, and even some here on the Powerscourt estate that we use in the process. We endeavour to work with raw material and packaging suppliers who have ethical practices while retaining the quality and premium feel our customers expect. We've taken every opportunity to continuously improve on everyday tasks, such as recycling our coffee granules, which are used to enhance the compost in the award-winning Powerscourt Gardens just beside the distillery. And finally, last but not least, all our takeaway coffee cups and Furcullen ice cream packaging are in biodegradable and fully compostable packaging. Thank you for your time, for joining us on our sustainability journey. We look forward to continuing the mindset and continuously striving to enhance our sustainability offering.
The whole idea of a blend is that each element you can taste in the final product. Bourbon has to be vanilla and some of that honey sweetness with really nice vibrant oak. Oloroso gives you those kind of dried fruits and that Christmassy cake. I think Pedro Jimenez is more higher notes on taste. Grape skins and a little bit less heavy. Again, you're looking at some fruitiness, grapefruits and stuff like that, but sherry through and through. Marsala, that's the flowery one, gives you the nose, instantly recognises as Marsala. But again, there's other flavours in there as well that complement the rest of these things. Muscatel is you know, nicely rounded textures and things like that are coming in there.
It's deep dark fruits, yeah. It's the really overripe plums and some of those flavours coming through.
Exactly. I can't help but just pick it up and keep sipping at it.
If you could give us a wee bit of info why you came into the CAST programme. I know yourself and Breed decided to go ahead and become CAST members. Why did you come to that decision?
Yeah, Breed and myself, we have been looking around. We're at a stage in our life there that we were looking for some investments. I personally have a fond interest in whisky. The Powerscourt brand is probably what drew us here. You know, I've been visiting Powerscourt since I was a child, you know, be it the waterfall or even the golf course in later years. Being a local, everything just ties in together there. It's the hotel, it's the house, it's the gardens, the waterfall, and now the whisky, and I think it just brings a fantastic story together.
We're here in the Powerscourt Distillery Maturation Warehouse with Noel Sweeney. Noel, delighted to be here to have a chat with you. We're talking about our CAST programme. Can you tell me just what is the Powerscourt Distillery CAST programme?
I think the CAST programme is a unique opportunity for people to get involved in the distillery and in the whisky that we produce. There are only 397 casks, and as such that gives quite a limited number of people the opportunity to get involved. And the whisky will be in our cask for up to 10 years. It'll be 200 litres of new make spirit, and it's a kind of an exclusive club for members to be in, and they will have certain privileges, and they'll have access to events that will be happening here and to special releases of whiskies that we will release over the next 10 years. So John, the inspiration for the Five Elements second edition, and indeed the first one, probably goes back to when I was working with Barry Walsh on a project when we produced a 10-year-old malt, and it was my first experience of doing different wood finishes. So we had gotten different cask styles, and the idea initially was to see would we bring out a finish. And it was while we were looking at how those finishes were developing that Barry said to me, he says, well, Noel, he says, you know, why don't we use them all? And all of a sudden I says, wow, why didn't I think of that? You know, so, and the trick then, of course, is not to use or over-influence one above the other. So when I eventually then came to Powerscourt, and we were fortunate to have such excellent liquid at 16-year-old whiskies. One of the first things I did back in 2017 was to put some of that malt whiskey that had been matured quite well in bourbon, really lovely whiskey. And you know what they say about finishing, John, you know, you don't put bad whiskey in to finish them off. Some people use finishing or different cask styles to hide a flaw.
To mask, yeah.
But obviously, the best thing to do is to put good whiskey into them because it only improves. So we selected quite a number of different cask styles, laid down the whiskey, and we've been keeping a close eye on it since. There's a lot of product in the market out there that have finishes.
A single finish. Maybe.
Single finish, yeah. Exactly. There were very few that were just matured in bourbon only. Mm-hmm. And that's why we did that 18-year-old. So my next challenge was to come up with something different or something new. And while we had all of this lovely stock in the warehouse over the last couple of years, we came up with the idea, well, why don't we do a blend of the different finishes and put that out? And that's something that you won't see much of in the market. So our first 5 elements, again, the 5 elements were different woods, different finishes, along with bourbon, and bringing them together. But you cannot just mix a barrel of this, a barrel of that, and a barrel of the other. You need to blend them together in the right proportion. And as you were saying earlier, the whole idea of a blend, for the want of a better word, is that each element you can taste in the final product. And that's what we hope to achieve when we're doing this kind of production.
So really, I suppose the spine of this whiskey is, of course, the bourbon matured single malt whiskey. Every drop of this at one stage has been in a bourbon barrel, and then a proportion of it has been in a bourbon barrel for the entire 20 years. Certainly all the Fercullen whiskies begin life in bourbon barrels. So what is it bringing to play?
I mean, the influence of bourbon on Irish whiskey is massive. There's no denying that. The American oak itself is not as dense as European oak. The charring that they do in the production of the bourbon barrel is quite heavy. We call that alligator.
Alligator level 4 or 5, yeah.
So you know, and that caramelizes a lot of the natural sugars in the wood. And remember, that wood has been seasoned for many years, 2 years minimum. And that influence then is impaired into the whiskey in the production of bourbon. But you know, a lot of bourbons aren't very long matured, a couple of years, 3 years, 4, and
max,
maybe some
yeah.
older. But so there's still an awful lot of activity in the bourbon cask, and that makes it ideal for the production of other spirits, and in particular Irish whiskey. It gives it a mellowness as well, so the tannings have less of an influence.
There's more vanillin in American oak,
more
so you're getting more of that influence, I think, than European oak.
Again, that's the vanilla sweetness that you get in it, and the chocolate notes sometimes as well, and the char. So over time, those combinations are extracted into the spirit during maturation, and again over time we lose so much to the angels.
Yeah.
Happy angels around Powerscourt. You see some of them flying around here, all right. But anyway, the concentration of those flavors over time, as well, in the way that the liquid drops in level in the barrel, and the alcohol strength weakens a little bit, and the chemical reactions that go on during maturation, we've talked about many times before. A lot of what bourbon has to contribute as a wood comes out in the first 8 to 10 years in maturation. And after that, then it's the spirit and the combinations of reactions that's gone on between those chemicals that's come out of the wood and into the alcohol that give you the more exotic flavors in your whiskey. So bourbon is very important. American oak is very important. But again, for something like special whiskey like Five Elements, you want to bring in other influences, and that's why we've done some of the European oak casks and those finishes as well. But the backbone, as you said, is that initial maturation in bourbon.
To taste it then, I mean, I said at the very start, and I think it's what I really love about this whiskey is all of those different elements, you can actually pinpoint them. Like from the nose, you got the floral, you've got some of the syrup, you've got some of the vanilla there. When you taste it, all of the flavors at the back of your mouth, where your sweet receptors are. So there's nothing bitter in this whatsoever. It's sweet, you're picking everything up, and then some of the tannin, some of the dryness, the Oloroso, just the fact it's 20-year-old barrels, or older because they've held something else previously, of course, and those tannins are coming through. So compliments to the chef, a phenomenal whiskey. Well done, Noel. So with PX, and this barrel here is a PX barrel, what were you looking for from that? What would the characteristics of a PX matured or PX finished whiskey be?
My style in whiskey tasting has always been the same. I will take the whiskey, nose it, taste it, and I'm looking at what that particular whiskey is going to contribute to the overall product. I know what I like. And I've always maintained if I like it, 95% of people out there will like it. I'm looking at the overall effect and the flavour and the taste and the nose, and the different casks give you different intensities of those. For everybody would be familiar with the bourbon barrel that gives you that vanilla, but it also gives you sweetness in a different style, honey, citrusy type flavours. And you will also get some tannings. Similarly with Pedro Jimenez, you're going to get some tannings obviously from the wood, but you're also getting the stuff that's coming from the original sherry and from the skins of the grapes and all of that that's gone into the making of the sherry. That sweetness again that comes with sherry, the fortified wine there that just oozes those kind of Christmassy cake flavours as well. So, I mean, you're probably much better at describing the typical Pedro Jimenez than I would be.
The word you used there for Pedro Jimenez, the word oozes, that for me, almost encompasses Pedro Jimenez, because for me it's a syrupy, it's a treacly, it's like squished figs, but something that's oozing.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Squished figs. I mean, I always come along and I say
squished might be a word my daughter would use, but you know it is. But it oozes.
Yes.
And I think that's certainly coming through in elements of this whiskey, which is what's makes this whiskey so special, because you're getting that oozing, that syrupy nature, along with then some of the other influences.
Exactly. And I can't help but just pick it up and keep sipping at it. It's just gorgeous.